Hey everyone, Dennis Chang here. Welcome to another video. I'll try to make this one short, But before that, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. Really, it makes a huge difference. This video will be a continuation of the previous video where I was talking about how I personally developed my technique, where I shared some of my practice methods. And we'll apply it here to today's video, which will be about Gypsy jazz guitar technique. For those who don't know, on my DC Music School website, I have a course dedicated to Gypsy jazz guitar technique. It goes really in detail about how to develop this technique. And if you're a newcomer to Gypsy jazz or a beginner, on Sound Slice, I have a lesson series dedicated to learning how to learn Gypsy jazz. So you'll find all the links in the description box. I remind you, feel free to leave a comment because it makes a huge difference. To all those who have been leaving comments and all that stuff, liking and subscribing, really thank you from the bottom of my heart. It makes a huge difference. For me, it's mentally difficult the past 2 years, a year and a half actually, of not being able to work at all because of the pandemic. And this is the only thing I can do. So really, thank you so much for just doing that. And if you bought some of my courses, thank you so much. It really helps a lot in these very difficult times. Last year was actually a good year because, all right, I figured I'll take a year-long sabbatical, but now it's been over a year and it's too much for me. These YouTube videos are pretty much the only thing I can do at the moment. Okay, let's get started. So what you just heard was an etude that I composed over a G minor blues progression. You first heard one at a fast tempo, and later on I'll record one for you at a slower tempo. As I said in my previous video, I never really worked on technique for the sake of working on technique. I've only ever worked on sound and vocabulary. All my technique comes from vocabulary. So in the instance of Gypsy jazz, all I ever did was really learn a bunch of lines, and that was how I developed my chops, so to speak. Nowadays, I mainly make up my own phrases and I practice them. And there's a reason why I like to work on vocabulary. For starters, it trains your ears to get accustomed to the special colors of the style. And then there's also, of course, the benefit of working on technique as you work on vocabulary. And as you keep developing this vocabulary thing, eventually what happens is you start to become very familiar with the special colors that I mentioned, of the colors that make this style what it is, or other styles. And eventually what happened to me was that, I guess, organically, I was able to understand how improvisation worked in this style. It's very hard to put into words, into scientific words with technical terms. But in my head, I'm rarely thinking about this scale or arpeggio. I may be playing scales or arpeggios, but it's not what I'm thinking in my head. It's more that I hear these colors and I can visualize them, just like Neo in the Matrix. Over the years, I've worked on so many phrases. First, phrases from the masters, and then eventually I started to make my own because I started to understand how the style worked. But if you were to ask me to play like phrase after phrase, I wouldn't be able to do it for you because I've pretty much forgotten most of them. But instead, what I have is that I hear the colors in my head, therefore I can make them up on the spot. And that to me is one of the ultimate benefits of working on vocabulary. It's kind of like a child learning to speak its native language. In the beginning, they don't know anything about grammar, but they start speaking and they get better and better. And before you know it, they're able to make their own sentences. They're improvising their own phrases in their native language with the local slang, the local dialect. And it's really the same thing with improvisation for me. Later on, if you want to learn the grammar and all that stuff, of course, there's no problem with that. Okay, let's get started. First, what I want to say is that you should also follow my Instagram page because these phrases that I came up with, I recorded them on my phone like a few weeks ago and posted them on my Instagram page. And then if you go to my sound slides page, you have the tabs for free. Just the audio will be lower quality. So how would I practice these series of phrases? First of all, I would do it, as I said in the previous video, without a metronome. Just get the notes under my fingers. Then you have to decide for yourself, okay, at what tempo am I aiming to execute these phrases at? Because keep in mind that when we're playing jazz, we're not always playing at fast tempos, right? Especially a song like this, a minor blues form, can be played at a medium tempo, and it will sound good as well if you play these triplet phrases. So let's give this a listen. That was it at 140 BPM. So what I want to say is that depending on the speed, I may change certain aspects of my technique to get different sounds. The slower it is, the more I can play with articulation, and the more I can get away with being quote-unquote less efficient with my mechanics. The faster it is, the more I have to pay attention to the details of the mechanics, and sometimes at the expense of tone. And that's exactly what happened in this case when I played it slow, and in the beginning when I played it fast. When I played it fast, I'm not gonna lie, I had to take the time to analyze how I was gonna best execute this at that speed. But when I played it at this previous tempo, the one that I just did at 140 BPM, I just went for it. And I know for sure I used different strokes. One thing I did for sure is I think I picked just about every note. And if you were to ask me to play the same thing again at the same tempo, I might change the articulations, because for me it happens in the moment. For you, if you're new to this, you might have to even plan things out at that tempo. But I've been playing this style for so long, using this technique for so long, that it's second nature for me when it's not crazy fast. Everything happens in the moment. So I may choose to do an articulation here or there, like accent this note, so double down strokes or whatever. So as you're practicing this, keep that in mind. So let's just assume you're going for like top speed, like 200 BPM, I think was what I did earlier. You'll have to start playing it as fast as you can, first without a metronome, just to see like how it feels under your fingers. And then you're gonna start to analyze, all right, what can I do to be able to one day execute this at 200 BPM? And so there are certain key areas where I modified certain articulations deliberately so that I end up with something specific. So namely this part over the C minor chord, the second half where I have this, I have a downstroke, up, down, and then I do a slide. So that allows my hand to be ready to do a downstroke on this string. And then down, up, and then that pull off here gives me time to be able to reach this note here with a downstroke. Because when you use this technique, generally speaking, you start a new string with a downstroke. It's not always true, but it's a general thing. And the reason why we do this deals with the mechanics of the right hand, the position of the right hand. It's not out of dogmatism. It's actually what makes it most efficient, believe it or not. Since this is not a video about the mechanics of gypsy picking, they say gypsy picking, but that's just a term that someone came up with recently, Michael Horitz. But the fact is, back in the day, most guitar players used this technique. In fact, you can watch a documentary that I made, not documentary, but like another YouTube video, one of my first ones, I think it was in the summer of 2018 or maybe even 2019 that I did this one. It's somewhere on my YouTube channel, so just look for it, I think Secrets of Gypsy Picking or something like that, History of Guitar Picking Technique. So let me just try the phrases out a little bit for you, and then let's just pretend that I'm looking for the problem areas. Let's say my problem area is just right off the bat this. So I'll try to loop this as many times as I can. And gradually speed up. Then how's it go? around with your fingerings as well to see which finger works better, allows you to go faster and faster. The slower it is, the more quote-unquote inefficient you can be. Usually when I play fairly slowly, I like to use more fingers. But sometimes when it goes really fast and the pinky is too weak, I'll switch for another finger. So look for the problem areas and just like try to find a way to loop that problem area. For me, one of the problem areas was definitely this C minor chord thing, this phrase. It's really, really hard for me anyway. I had to practice it quite a little bit, and that's what I would do. And once I start to feel mechanically comfortable-ish with my fingers and everything, I would start to put on the metronome or the backing track. This is very important because this is a rhythmic phrase. Okay, in jazz you have a little bit of room for interpretation with rhythm. That's a really cool thing. But for the sake of studying, it would be a good idea to try to get it as precise as possible, which is definitely no easy task when it's very, very fast. For me personally, again, that C minor one was extremely difficult, technically and even rhythmically, because the accents are kind of naturally in the wrong place. See? Oh, earlier I said down, up, down, slide, but it's actually what I did now. I realize it's up, slide, then down. Okay? So that's me trying to train to be able to play it really, really fast. But again, if my goal was to play at 150 BPM or even 160 or even 170, which for me isn't that fast, I may be tempted to use more articulation with the right hand, I mean. So just already this first phrase. If I'm playing it really fast, what would be? It's pretty much just alternate picking. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. It works out really nicely that way. But if it were slower, I may want to bring out the tripletness a little bit more. See, just to get that punch. So just keep that in mind, that articulations can change, and whenever possible, try to prioritize sound. And likewise with that C minor phrase, if I did slower, you notice those accents to bring out the tripletness. I did more double downs because my name is James Hetfield. And there we go. That's how I practice technique. The faster you go, the more of an analytical mind you'll need, and probably you might even have to practice in front of the mirror. That's something that I used to do a lot back in the day. Now let's just talk about some of the other added benefits of working on these phrases. Like I said, nowadays I'm able to make my own phrases, and it's because I understand this style very, very well. I've been playing it for a long time. But back in the day, I was taking other people's phrases. At any rate, what you want to do at one point, maybe not right away, but as your ears start to get used to understanding this language in a natural way, then you want to start making your own variations. So you can take a few concepts. I'll just show you a few. So already this first thing is really cool. This. And then you have this shape that I got from Birelli-Legrand actually, and then a lot of players copied Birelli's shape. I don't know where Birelli himself got it from, but maybe he made it up on his own, but it's just the A minor 7 flat 5 arpeggio, C minor 6. So you got shapes, you got little ideas, then you got concepts as well. So what I did in this phrase, over the C minor chord, I had a C minor arpeggio thing going, and then I had a concept, a voice leading concept to bring me from C minor back to G minor. So this voice leading thing is thinking, well, implying the D7 chord to bring me back to G minor. And this D7, it manifests itself in the form of a scale, leading me to the 6 here. So what you can do, you can make up, you don't have to use the same shape, you can use other shapes, but use the same concept. So C minor, let's say you have this shape, then D7, G minor. I don't remember what I did some scale. Cool, huh? And then in the original etude, I had this little arpeggio where I accented the major 7. So that's a sound you can play with as well. The final phrase is something that I got from bebop players, where it looks like I'm playing some sort of E flat major 7 arpeggio, but actually I'm thinking C minor. And E flat major 7 is kind of like a bebop way of expressing C minor. And then D7. But you can make up other phrases with this idea. So there's a lot of ingredients for improvisation here. And for me, this is a much more, well, I'm just talking about me. I'm not saying that theory is bad and all that stuff, but I feel that this is a very organic way to learn improvisation because you're immersed in it, you're bathing in the sounds, you're using your ears, rather than saying, okay, over a C minor I can play C Dorian, but those are just words. What does Dorian sound like to you? And that's, for me, is more important than talking the talk. You want to walk the walk. Here's another tip. Also, pay attention to the sound, how you strike the strings. Like you can strike the strings here, here, here. It depends on the guitar, it depends on the setup, but if you want a more aggressive sound, you can closer to the bridge, right? Sorry, not clean. So I'm just going to repeat a little bit of what I said earlier. When I go faster, I may have to sacrifice a little bit of tone, but nonetheless, I always try to squeeze in as much of a good tone as I can as possible. So chances are when you play really, really fast, you might not be able to pick as loud because you have to be more efficient, economical with the right hand, but I still try to go for the most positive contact with the strings with my right hand. So there we go. That's my little short Gypsy Jazz chops building etude, and I hope you have some fun with it. I think that D7 lick can be easily applied to so many other songs in a minor key. So if you need the tab, just check out my sound slides page and you'll find the tab for this whole etude. That said, I want to give you one extra phrase. One thing that I like to practice are certain phrases that you can loop indefinitely. So here's one that I just made up for you. Let's say in C7. I'll do it slowly. And you can loop this over and over. I want to teach this phrase to you by ear because I think music, well, it's an ear thing, right? And it's worth developing your ears. Here it is really, really slowly. The notes, anyway. And here what I do, this ornament is down, up, pull off, down. In time it's like this. This is a downbeat. Okay, and then this chromatic. and then I slide my index finger. So check out one of my recent videos where I talk about the Django one finger technique shifting. Okay, then from here. That's the whole thing. And sometimes when I'm starting a new phrase, I like this kind of ornament where I do like an upstroke, I guess on the D string or the A string. There we go, have fun. Once again, thank you so much for liking, subscribing, leaving a comment. It really makes a difference. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.